Gamma hydroxybutyric acid, or GHB for short. It's C4H8O3. Is the compound is 104.1 grams per mole, and it's known as liquid ecstasy, G, cherry meth, when it's being talked about in date rape drugs, and then when it's medically used, it's known as sodium oxybate. In the 1960s, it was introduced into medicine by Dr. Laborde, and in the 70s, it started to be used for narcolepsy, and then they started advertising it as a fat burner and muscle developer. But then once they saw the downsides, it was declared unsafe and not to be sold in stores. So then in the 2000s, people started using it as a party drug, and it's now known as the date rape drug. So it's used for narcolepsy and then the date rape drug. In narcolepsy, it increases the amount of dopamine in the brain, with relatively little effect on other neurotransmitter systems. It induces REM followed by a slow wave sleep, and acts as an agonist at the GABA-B receptor complex and the GHB receptor, and it reduces daytime sleepiness and cataplexy, which is when you just kind of lose control. Its euphoric and sedative effects have made this drug popular among youths. It only takes 15 minutes to kick in, and it lasts 3 to 4 hours. It comes in a colorless and odorless liquid in a white powder, and it's most commonly used in the colorless and odorless liquid, and it tastes slightly salty, so people mix it with like fruitier drinks, so don't taste it. It's made in Homer Street labs, and it's easy to overdose on, especially since it's made in kind of unclean labs that it's not the same every time, so the effects can vary. It has a lot of side effects, mostly relaxation, drowsiness, the loss of consciousness, and people not remembering what happened while they were drugged, and they kind of feel like they're in a dreamlike situation. And it can lead to death. Schedule 1 drug, it's high potential for abuse. There's no currently accepted medical treatment in the U.S., and it lacks safety under medical supervision, which made it a Schedule 1 drug, but it is a Schedule 3 drug when it's used to treat narcolepsy as sodium oxybate, and its Xygram is the only brand allowed to produce this drug for medical use. GHB acts as 2 receptor sites in the brain. Action at these 2 sites lead to the central nervous system depressant, stimulant, and psychomotor impairment. About 95% of GHB is metabolized in the liver, and then the other 5% is excreted through the kidneys. Its half-life ranges from 30 to 60 minutes, and so it can be difficult to detect after 24 hours since it has such a short half-life. GHB occurs naturally in the brain tissue, and it is rapidly absorbed by the gastrointestinal tract. Its primary precursor of GHB in the brain is GABA. Through a GABA transaminase, and it's converted into GHB through a SSR. And then GHB can be reconverted to SSA through a GHB dehydrogenase, and then SSA can be converted back to GABA. It can also be transformed into SSADH, into succinic acid, and then further metabolized by the Krebs cycle in the mitochondria. The metabolic breakdown can run in either direction. The body can make its own GHB from GABA or succinyldehyde, and when used for recreational purposes, the enzyme kinetics change, so the pathways operate to metabolize GHB rather than produce it.